Hello, it's Katrina at the Sewing Studio. I love it when children can inspire us adults into making something and not being too hung up about patterns or colours. So my grandchildren wanted to make a blanket for their new puppy. So they raided my stash of scraps. Some weren't complete scraps, but I let them have the bigger pieces if that's what they wanted to do. And this is what they've created. And I think it's brilliant. They actually sewed the pieces together and then I just did a bit of quilting to hold it onto the fleece for them. So if I show you how they started, because you can see this is just all random squares and rectangles, but it's gone together and I think it's really gorgeous. And none of the colours matter. We get really hung up, but children don't get so hung up. They're much more creative than we are. So, for example, we had this strip that they wanted to put on here. So they started with this yellow piece and they joined the turquoise piece. They didn't fit, but I trimmed them up afterwards, and I'll show you how we do that in a minute. And then we put this sheep piece here. So we've got this as our strip. And then they wanted to put this on it. Well, it wasn't quite long enough. So we just added a flash of pink there to the end of it to make it fit. So as I say, none of it matters. And what a great example of using up bits and pieces and having lots of colours that don't matter. So let me show you how we can do it with the scraps that I've got here. So for example, let's see what we've got. So for example, I'm going to join this piece to this piece, and you can see that they don't match, but at the moment that doesn't matter. So the first thing I'm going to do is just join those together, and then I'm going to come back over and press them and find another piece to add to it. I'm going to press that back. And the first thing I'm going to do now is trim that piece off. So it's almost straight. But as I say, none of it really matters because we're just going to keep adding to it. And the next thing I'm going to do is look at another piece of fabric that's going to fit. So we could put that there. Or what we could do is we could join lots of other pieces. So I'm probably going to join, let me just lay this out. I think I'm probably overthinking it. The children don't do that. So that's going to be about right. So I'm just going to join all of those, press them, trim them, and then join them to that bit. And you'll notice on this one, I've got a raggy edge. So I'm not going to get too worried about that because we don't have to worry about things matching up. So I'm going to trim it up afterwards. So I'm just going to join this piece to it. Let me see, I'm going to join it here. So I'm looking for the edge that is the straightest. So I'm just going to join that along there. Now I'm going to press that. And the same thing's happened as happened on the other quilt. It's not quite long enough. So I'm going to just add that bit. So that's going to be long enough. So what I'm going to do is just straighten this edge. I'll keep some of the scraps because I'm going to use those again. And then I'm going to sew this piece to this piece. Press that again. And then I'm just going to trim it up, so I'm straightening all the edges as I go. So the boys did the sewing, Granny did the trimming. And then what we do is we choose another piece of fabric. So we either want to go here or we want to go here. So we'll see what we've got. So I might actually cut that one down and I would then join that to something else. Let's have a look, we've got a bit of this blue here. So I might trim that down and then join that to a piece of this one, say, and build it up. So you get the idea of how it's going together in squares and rectangles. So it just depends how big your scraps are. And so you would build it up until you'd got it the size that you want it for your quilt. I'm just going to show you another quick example of scrappy piecing, which has been done with blacks and whites. And this is much, much smaller pieces, but it's done in exactly the same way, but really, really small pieces. So you would build this up. So for example, you could make this big enough for a cushion top. So the next thing I would do is, as you can see, I've done it all in blacks, whites and greys. So I would choose a piece of fabric and I would go across there. I'll show you how to do that. Flip it back and iron it. So some people call this crazy patchwork. So then I would just trim that off like that. And here. And then I would pick up another piece of fabric. So that one's quite big and I'm trying to do this in smaller pieces. So I might pick up another piece and I would put that there and I would trim that off and I would just build it up until it was the size I wanted. Then I could square it off and I've got a lovely cushion top. So it's a great way of using up all of your scraps. So there's a couple of ideas for you there. So we'll just go back and we'll look at the quilt that the boys made, which I'm sure their puppy's going to love. So that's a great way for just using up all your bits and pieces and not getting too hung up about matching and colour. just make it fit, because that's what patchwork is really all about. So as always, make it your own, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you here in the sewing studio the next time.